Welcome to the Egg Whisperer Show, a podcast exclusively designed to create more reproductive health awareness and discuss your fertility preservation options. Here is your host, the Harvard-educated fertility specialist, Dr. Amy.
Did you know that 1 in 10 women are affected by PCOS? Yet 75% remain undiagnosed. Today, we're diving into this often misunderstood condition with nutritionist and author Rohini Bajekal, whose groundbreaking book, Living PCOS Free, is literally changing the way we approach health and nutrition. Stay tuned as we explore the myths, solutions, and personal stories behind this life-changing work, and the unique journey that Rohini took from studying theology at Oxford to transforming lives through plant-based nutrition. Welcome to the show, Rohini.
Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for having me here. Really excited.
Me too.
I can't wait to dive into PCOS.
Welcome to the Egg Whisperer Show. The title of today's show is Living PCOS Free with Rohini Bajekal. So Rohini is a London-based nutritionist and co-author of Living PCOS Free. After earning a theology degree from Oxford University, she worked in branding and marketing for food startups in Mumbai and Singapore before pursuing her passion for nutrition. A board-certified lifestyle medicine professional with personal experience managing PCOS, she is dedicated to making plant-based, evidence-based wellness accessible to all. Rohini, from a theology degree at Oxford to a career in nutrition, your journey is fascinating. What sparked your shift in focus, and how has your diverse academic background influenced your approach to nutrition and wellness?
Well, yeah, it's definitely a more unusual path. And I guess I've always been drawn to asking big questions. And I think that's kind of what led me to eventually getting my PCOS diagnosis. But when it came to kind of going on that journey, I'd grown up in a medical family. My parents are both surgeons. My mum's a gynecologist. I know you had her on the show recently, and of course she co-authored the book with me. But we always grew up discussing things around women's health, and it was always fascinating to my friends at school. Like, wow, I wish my mom was a gynecologist. And especially being South Asian, we discussed a lot of topics that were not necessarily spoken about in our community, and they were really destigmatized. So I was really comfortable discussing, using certain terms for things. You know, my dad would run out and get my pads when I was at school and things. So we had that upbringing where we did discuss medical issues and also our passion for healthcare. So it's not surprising that I eventually kind of went down the path, although definitely focus on the more preventative and holistic side of that. But it was at university, at Oxford actually, that I first started experiencing PCOS symptoms. So we know that they start for the majority of people in those reproductive years. When I was living at home, I was eating mostly healthy, home-cooked Indian food. I was quite active. We had a dog. And when I started at university, that's really when my lifestyle took a sudden turn for the worse, like many university students. Late nights, binge drinking, studying late. And I noticed that all of these symptoms started creeping up. Obviously, at the time, I had no idea it was PCOS. I just thought something was really wrong with me. I was developing really severe cystic acne on my jawline. My hair was falling out. My periods started to hop and skip. And I was incredibly anxious, Amy. I often wouldn't leave my room for days at a time. And of course, my mother, being an ObGyn, said, okay, it could be PCOS. But being 19, I didn't really want to listen to what she had to say at the time. So it did take several more years before I got that official diagnosis. But it certainly started me on a path of looking at my health more deeply and trying to address things from the inside out.
How has your experience with PCOS influenced your work?
My experience with PCOS has influenced my work in every single way. I think, firstly, people look at health professionals and they think you have all the answers. And I'm sure you have this all the time. They think, you're a doctor or you're a nutritionist. Oh, I bet you eat super healthy every single day. And I think it just humanizes you. I think that as health professionals, sharing our vulnerabilities and our stories connects us to our clients or patients. And I still let my own clients know that I'm on my healing journey. I'm always learning things about PCOS, and I certainly don't have all the answers for everything. I'm always looking at all those 6 lifestyle pillars, finding ways to manage my stress better, get more diverse plants on my plate, make sure that I move my body regularly. So all of these things are a work in progress. And I think it's that passion for helping women and kind of really showing people that they can be in the driving seat. We all have the tools and we have the ability to help ourselves. And I think that with PCOS, there's such a variety, it's such a spectrum in the sense. It's not a disease, it's a condition that's a constellation of symptoms. No two people with PCOS are the same. And in fact, whilst we do have the official Rotterdam criteria, there are lots of other symptoms that never really get discussed, whether it's aspects such as a higher risk of obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety, sleep apnea, and other ways in which insulin resistance and higher androgen levels can manifest. I think that it can be really confusing for people. And often with clients, I help them join the dots to realize, oh, their binge eating is actually connected to PCOS because those higher androgen levels are appetite stimulating. So that can be a real reason why maybe when you open that bag of crisps or tuck into the ice cream, it can be especially hard to stop. And we know those cravings can be amplified in the luteal phase, just in that period, just before your period begins. So I think bringing that awareness and that knowledge of our bodies can really help people.
Your book, Living PCOS Free, you talk about regaining your hormonal health. And as you've shared, and as we all know, PCOS gets misunderstood as it's a complex endocrine disorder. And as your mom has shared, it's not specifically a gynecological disease. Can you explain what is PCOS and what does it do to your body?
So firstly, PCOS or Polycystic Ovary Syndrome, it's a little bit of a mouthful. And often people mistakenly believe this is to do with cysts, but these are not true ovarian cysts, that these are sort of multicystic follicles or immature follicles that don't reach maturity. And that's just one aspect of the way that this presents. But it's best thought of as an endocrine condition that affects how the ovaries function. And it has a variety of reproductive, psychological, metabolic effects on the body. As I mentioned, a few of those there, things like gaining excess weight or excess facial and body hair growth or acne, adult acne, especially in that jawline area. It's often called cystic or nodular acne. So these are all signs of that inflammation, of higher androgen levels. And for many women with PCOS, the driver is insulin resistance. And it's that insulin resistance which is responsible for most of the common symptoms of PCOS, including the things like the mood disorders I mentioned. So treating the underlying insulin resistance is really important. And for some people, it might be a combination of medications, but diet and lifestyle always needs to be part of the discussion. And that is actually why national and international guidelines recommend the first line of treatment. And it's really important to get that across. And I think in our book, we try to bring that across to people because there is a lot of medication shaming sometimes. We didn't want that either. We wanted for people to know, no matter where you're at, there is always space to bring in a few tweaks. It's those small, consistent changes which can yield massive results in PCOS. So with insulin resistance, changing especially what's on our plate can make a huge difference, but also improving insulin sensitivity. So that's how well our body is actually responding to the hormone insulin, helping us to metabolize carbohydrates and break them down into glucose for energy. So simple things could be a short 10-minute walk after a meal. That can help to curb those insulin and surges and bring down glucose levels, but also other things that could be getting more fiber, getting more plant protein, getting more sleep. And all of these, amazingly, are fantastic for hormonal health more generally, and of course, for fertility. And I have to mention this here that PCOS, you can have PCOS and it can coexist with other conditions. And it was only a couple of years ago that I was actually diagnosed with severe endometriosis on top of the PCOS. They can coexist and they are thought to start in utero, although we don't know the exact cause of either of those conditions. It's quite complex. There are genetic factors, there are environmental factors there, but you can have PCOS and have other things. So if you have got very painful periods or you've got things like that, those are big red flags, and definitely don't think, oh, I've got PCOS, I can't possibly have something else that might be at play there.
First of all, I'm sorry that you have severe endometriosis. And thank you for sharing so much about your own personal journey as we're talking, because I imagine that there are people out there listening that you're helping just by sharing your story. So there's a chapter in your book called It's Not Fair, How PCOS Affects People of Color. And PCOS is more common in some populations, but it seems to have been studied mostly in white women. What do Black and South Asian women need to know? And do we know why PCOS impacts different populations so differently?
Well, these are such great questions. And I think it's firstly important to say that PCOS is really under-researched, it's understudied like many areas of women's health, and it's incredibly frustrating. And I'm definitely wanting to see that change. I'm sure all of those who are listening feel the same. But when it comes to certain groups, it has been under-researched in those groups. We know that PCOS is more prevalent in certain groups, such as those living with excess weight, living with subfertility, but certainly in certain ethnic groups, it can be more prevalent. So we know that incidence can be as high as 1 in 4 in South Asians like myself. But we also know that symptoms appear to be more severe and can start at an earlier age in certain groups. So in Hispanic and South Asian women, things like excess facial and body hair can be more pronounced. We know that in Black women, there may be more metabolic disturbances, so more excess weight gained and higher risk of kind of complications in pregnancy as well. So it's quite complex. And again, there's no one size fits all. You shouldn't just be put into a certain box just because you are of a certain race. You need to be treated as an individual. But it is helpful for healthcare providers and professionals to know that. And if you're listening as well, the number one thing I would say is, unfortunately, there is implicit and explicit bias in healthcare. It's incredibly important for everyone to advocate for yourselves. And if you're facing that pushback from a health professional, please find someone who is empathetic, who treats you as a human being and hears what you have to say. And if you feel that you may have PCOS, then get help early. It's so important. The earlier you get help, the more you can be on a path to addressing that insulin resistance, as well as understanding your goals. Maybe they might be fertility related, they might not be, but it's really helpful. And finding that community as well, even within the PCOS community, you might find there's a fantastic collective here for South Asian women with PCOS in the UK. And there's a lot of resources out there. Different things can be helpful, but there are specific things that might resonate, especially because in certain contexts and in certain communities, things like fertility issues can be especially stigmatized, and it can be really quite difficult. So getting that support from people who might understand and who can give you culturally relevant nutrition advice as well. Not everyone is necessarily wanting to be eating a quinoa salad and porridge every day. They might be wanting to have their cultural foods in a healthy way. And so it's important to get that point across as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. One of the most common myths, and sometimes it's perpetuated by OBGYNs to their patients, they say things like, oh, when it comes to PCOS, you only need to worry about it when you're ready to get pregnant.
That is probably
just not true. No.
That is really frustrating when I hear that. And I'm really happy to say that I'm getting younger women in my clinics who are empowering themselves. I think Gen Z are talking about this much more, and that is just awesome. That I think that you're so right. Not everyone, firstly, wants to have a baby. Of course, many people do. That PCOS can affect every area of your life. We know that it can impact your body image. It can lead to high rates of sexual dysfunction, higher mood disorders. It can affect you in so many ways. So it's really important not to see this as just a fertility condition. Of course, it is the leading cause of subfertility and ovulatory infertility. So I think for people to know that is really important. But I think that you deserve to live a life where you feel at home in your body. And so addressing these factors early is so helpful. And also PCOS is linked to long-term complications. So there's a higher risk of things like a dysregulated lipid profile, which essentially means you might see higher LDL cholesterol, and you might see high levels of triglycerides. You might find that you're gaining weight more quickly. You can certainly find that certain even menopausal symptoms can be more pronounced. And it is potentially associated with a higher risk of things like stroke, cardiovascular disease, and most obviously is type 2 diabetes. Over half of all women with PCOS who are living with excess body weight will develop type 2 diabetes by the age of 40. That's only 5 years older than I am. That's really young. 40 is really young. So I think by encouraging these healthy lifestyles earlier, then it just becomes like second nature. And it's not all or nothing. Trust me, I'm not someone up at 5 every day in the gym. It's really being kind to ourselves and finding little ways to introduce those changes in all areas of our lives. It's not all or nothing.
Yeah. And you did such a great job with this book. And when I was going through it and reading it, I was like, this book probably took 10 years to write. How long did it take you guys to write this, you and your mom?
We wrote this in 3 months during the pandemic.
Wow.
I think it was a global pandemic, and my mom was like, finally, I have the time. I've been a surgeon for 40 years. I have not stopped. She raised us two girls, my sister and I. So she was like, I'm going to write this general book. And I said, no, please write the book. I am now in my 30s, but I wish I had this book so many years ago. And people deserve to know that this is a condition that is not, it just gets labeled in the most horrible way. You hear things like male pattern baldness, oh, you're infertile. You hear this horrible language around PCOS. It is so stigmatized. I'm very happy to see that more celebrities are coming out and talking about it, because for many years, no one wants to put their hand up and say, hey, I have to thread my chin hair, or I have to, go and see a dermatologist for my acne, or I'm on spironolactone, or whatever it is. And it's hard to come out and say you've got PCOS. It's not an easy thing, because we live in a society where women are expected to be as smooth as dolphins and only have hair on our head and nowhere else. So it's very unrealistic body goals and things. So my mom and I, we sat down with very different personalities. She is a real powerhouse, and I am and she's very type A, and I'm very perfectionistic. So we balance each other out, and we're both very passionate. So we would be driving the rest of the household mad, because we'd be up at 11 o'clock at night discussing research studies. We have over 500 references in our book, but we've always discussed everything. We've always been that way. And we have plans to write feature things as well, whether it's menopause or endometriosis. We're always just discussing things together.
Well, that's so fun. I envy your relationship. I have little girls, so one day I hope that they'll write a book with me. That would be a dream come true.
Oh, that would be amazing. I'm sure they're going to be really passionate about women's health as well. It's the future.
Yeah. So in your book, you also offer a 21-day plan and include over 30 plant-based recipes. How do these tools empower women to take control of their health? And what role does plant-based nutrition play in managing PCOS?
So what it's really important for everyone to understand is that it's not about being 100% vegan or 100% plant-based, but it's the benefits of including more diverse plants on our plate. There are so many myths about plant-based nutrition. Firstly, the idea that plants don't have enough protein, or that they're lacking nutrients or lacking essential amino acids. And as a nutritionist myself, I spend many, many hours every day busting these myths. Plant-based diets have been shown in every area of medicine pretty much to be beneficial, alongside all the other therapeutic lifestyle interventions. But it's again meeting with the person where they're at. Right now, fewer than 1 in 10 Americans meets the fiber guidelines every day. And it's the same in the UK. Fewer than 1 in 10 British adults meets the fiber recommendations. Here in the UK, it's 30 grams per day for adults. It's actually even less for women in the US. That is really shocking. That means 9 in 10 of us are fiber deficient, chronically constipated. And of course, constipation is a problem because bloating and gut issues are really common in PCOS. It's something a lot of people find is really makes them very uncomfortable. And of course, our poo traps that excess estrogen and is really important for healthy elimination. So it's key to get that fiber in. Fiber is only found in plants. So by whole food plant-based, I mean fruit, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains like oats and quinoa and foods like that, and brown rice, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices, which are the most antioxidant rich of any food group, and of course water or herbal teas as your beverage of choice. So how much you go towards that dietary pattern depends on your personal lifestyle. You might have that piece of chicken or that slice of chocolate cake, but most of your plate should be bursting with that color. And that is not only going to help you with your PCOS, it's going to help you with your metabolic health. It's going to help get you that clear, lovely skin. It's going to help you with your fertility goals. And that way of eating is suitable for all ages, with some tweaks, with some adaptations. But simple things, it could be making a swap, going for soya milk in your oats in the morning rather than cow's dairy, adding an extra handful of greens in when you make that curry or stew, or maybe snacking on some berries and nuts instead of reaching for that chocolate bar or packet of crisps or whatever. So I really think it's just about making those simple swaps to start with. There are some key supplements as well that may be important, and especially in PCOS, we know that women with PCOS tend to be more deficient in things like vitamin D, which also play an important role for fertility. They do need to be assessed on an individual basis, but there are some things, particularly if you live in the northern latitudes like myself here in London, then vitamin D is really essential. And if you're someone with darker skin like myself as well, then higher levels may be needed.
Thank you for all of that information. And your recipes are, I get hungry just looking at them. Banana, oat, and walnut cookies, a green smoothie, a sunshine turmeric shot, and you give instructions as to how to prepare each recipe. Oh, here, baked sweet potato guacamole and black bean salad. I mean, that sounds delicious. So all
And
of
it's
these
super
recipes.
simple. Yeah. This is the kind of thing you can get in any supermarket. It can be batch cooked. It's fantastic. And if you bake potatoes, whether they're sweet potatoes or regular potatoes, and you eat them the next day, you increase the amount of resistant starch, which feeds your gut bugs and gives you more of those beneficial short chain fatty acids. So there's a lot of helpful tweaks in that. And that also helps to lower the glycemic index of the meal. So it's all of these tweaks you don't have to remember all of them, but they can all play a really helpful role. And you don't need to spend 2 hours a day in the kitchen. And in fact, I've seen people when they are sort of almost following a meal plan too rigidly. They might be spending hours a day trying to follow that perfect fertility friendly meal plan, but they may be missing out on that time with their partner or with their friends, or cutting back on their quality sleep. So it's looking at that whole picture, and quick and easy things can be really helpful. So I recommend a smoothie because it's a fantastic vehicle for getting in all of that goodness, those greens, frozen berries, maybe some soy milk, some cinnamon. And you can sip that on your way to work if you're really busy, or if you're rushing after your kids or doing whatever it is that you're doing. So that's kind of a helpful hack right there.
And then how did you come up with all these recipes?
Well, my mum and I are both avid foodies, and South Asian culture is, we really celebrate food. I've lived in Singapore, which is a foodie paradise as well. So I absolutely love food. I'm the opposite of my husband, who eats to live. So I'm always experimenting. And I think I want to just let people know that if you've got PCOS, it's so important to find that food freedom. There are higher rates of disordered eating in PCOS. And so finding foods that you enjoy and just making little tweaks. So you can still enjoy your cookies, but maybe adding some walnuts or some flax seeds in there, which are full of lignans and again, have a lot of benefits. They're rich in omega-3 fats. So it's not necessarily about healthifying every recipe, but it's that you can enjoy all of your favorite foods with PCOS. You do not need to cut carbs. That is one of the biggest myths about PCOS. It is so restrictive and harmful, and really, really unfair because, as I said, women with PCOS have a higher risk of disordered eating. So all foods can fit, but it's about finding a way to bring in that joy back into your life. That's what living PCOS free is about. It's not about cutting things out or following this really, restrictive lifestyle. It's bringing that joy back in so that you feel good in yourself, and hopefully you can feel good for many years to come.
I like that. You've given us so many great phrases. I just want to put them on like a t-shirt or a hat or bumper stickers on my car. So for anyone who's listening who suspects they might have PCOS but haven't received a diagnosis, what advice do you have for them?
So as we know, as you said at the start, 3 in 4 haven't received a diagnosis, Amy, and there is a slightly different criteria for teenagers. It's important to seek a formal diagnosis. I think it's really important, and go there with a list of questions. So you've written them all down, you've got it really clear in your mind, have a history of your menstrual cycle clearly available, unless you've been on hormonal birth control and things. And just get all those dates really clear. Perhaps take a chaperone along, like a friend or your partner along, or just someone that can be in the room with you, because your mind can go blank in those situations. I've been there myself, broken down in tears. I think there's no shame in feeling that way. It really, even the smartest people can just find that they are lost for words, and it can be incredibly overwhelming. So I think empower yourself with knowledge first. There are some great resources online. Of course, we've done lots of great episodes on PCOS as well. You've had my friend Dr. Dylan Cutler on, and lots of other wonderful people in the PCOS community. So empower yourself with that information, but really maybe make a timeline of your own health journey. So when you started your periods, what your average cycle length is like, any medications. So I think the more detail, the better. Send it in advance to your healthcare provider if you can, and be prepared to find someone who's going to listen and take it seriously. Unfortunately, there are health professionals who don't know enough about PCOS themselves. So there are people out there who are going to help you. And the earlier you can get help, the earlier that you can make those changes. And sometimes with a focus on PCOS can be just trying to get pregnant. And I know that can be such a big goal, but it's also about trying to have a healthy pregnancy as well. We do have higher rates of gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, and these sorts of issues in PCOS. So I think the earlier you can make changes, the better. The advice of trying to conceive for 2 years doesn't really make sense for PCOS if you're not having regular periods in the first place. If you're only having a cycle 4 times a year, you've got to address that first off the bat. And I just had someone recently, actually, my mother and I went on national TV, which was really quite an overwhelming experience for me. I'm a naturally private person. And I found that going on TV, I had people contacting me who I'd gone to primary school with, that it was really helpful. And I had some people reach out to me afterwards, and a lady who said she got her cycle back after 8 months following my advice. She had not had a period in 8 months. She wasn't pregnant. She was really desperate to conceive. And so I know that this can work. It's not that I'm some miracle worker. It's that so often it's these small, sustainable changes, and no one necessarily taught you in this way before to realize that all these dots are joined, that you do have this condition, but it's not a life sentence. Yes, we don't have a cure for PCOS yet, but it can actually be an opportunity to address all these pillars of your lifestyle and to start this new kind of healing journey. And for some people, that can change their life, because most of us in the UK and the USA, we're facing a chronic disease epidemic. And with PCOS, sometimes it gives you that chance to address those factors earlier than others get a chance to. So I see it as an opportunity sometimes too.
Absolutely. As an opportunity, it's not a curse. You don't have to feel like having the diagnosis means like there's something terribly wrong with you. Using it as an opportunity to take really good care of yourself, learn about your body, and basically balance your hormones as early as possible. I don't see that as a negative thing at all.
Totally. And just to say, another fun fact, this is the most common menstrual disorder among Olympic athletes, female athletes. It's pretty incredible. And 40% of Olympic female athletes in a study had PCOS. We know that it can be a superpower in some ways. We know that they've done studies showing that we've got greater ability to lift heavier weights and things. And strength training is something I recommend for everyone, because it is super empowering. It can really help with that insulin sensitivity. And it can be really helpful for that fertility-friendly lifestyle as well, where you might find that more intense cardio doesn't fit in the goals if you're experiencing things like IVF or fertility treatment. Although I think that's important for you to discuss with your doctor. I think that strength training can be a really incredible, empowering thing to do. So yeah, there's lots of interesting facts about PCOS. I find it all incredibly interesting, and the history of it. We even know there's some documents in Hippocrates' time of women with PCOS. So this is not a new condition. This is literally a tale as old as time.
That's so funny that you say that, because I tell my PCOS patients, sometimes I'm the first one to give them the diagnosis. I literally tell them it is a superpower.
Yeah, I think
I didn't know that fun fact about Olympians. So now I'm going to add that to what I share with my patients.
Yeah, it's super cool. And most women with PCOS, especially when help is sought early, hopefully, and they get the care that they need, will go on to get pregnant. And it's so important to reassure people that, especially if they're in that situation where they may have been told that in the doctor's office at a very young age, or may have heard that on the radio or wherever they read it, that actually it's going to be impossible to get pregnant. That sticks in someone's mind, and they can carry that fear, that anxiety
For decades.
Yeah, totally. I've heard this so many times.
I mean, they can be told by their pediatrician or their OBGYN, in their early 20s that they'll never get pregnant. It will be impossible. And that's just, to carry that with you. And then that patient will come see me over 35. And then I just feel so bad that she was given such wrong information.
Oh, it's really heartbreaking. And I do feel that we need to raise awareness of this as rapidly as possible, so that we're not having so many people that don't know that they've got PCOS and are wondering why their periods are all over the place, or why they're experiencing these other symptoms, because it's really difficult when you're left in the dark.
Yeah, absolutely. And we already talked about a couple myths already, like you should wait 2 years and then if you're not pregnant, get help. Well, with PCOS, it doesn't make sense. So, what are some of the most common or surprising myths that you've encountered with PCOS, and how does your book debunk them?
Oh, there are just so many. I think it's, I mentioned the sort of the fear of carbohydrates, needing to cut carbohydrates, the myth that you will never get pregnant. I think the myth that you are full of these male hormones, again, that stigmatizing language. Language is really, really important. We do have a lot of outdated language in healthcare, and we need to be conscious and careful of the way we speak to people about it. And I think that another one that comes up a lot is about excess body weight. So we know there's a complicated relationship between body weight and PCOS. So we know that losing some body fat can help restore cycles in some women with PCOS. But there's also 20% of those with PCOS who actually are considered lean according to kind of the BMI scale, and they may actually not have much weight to lose. And so PCOS is complicated. We know that those same kind of lean patients on an MRI scan do show that they've got higher amounts of visceral fat. So that's the fat around their organs. And they've got might have less subcutaneous fat. We also know that certain ethnic groups like Chinese Han women, they might have less subcutaneous fat, but they've got more visceral fat and are still experiencing PCOS. So I think that's why body composition, I would say, is much more important than focusing on that number on the scale. And that's why strength training, getting more plant protein and fiber, that's much more in your control than that body weight. Of course, getting care for that is really important, seeing a health professional who can guide you. But so often the focus can just be on that losing weight at any cost, at any goal. It's got to be a carefully balanced discussion, because just losing weight for someone with PCOS will not see this kind of massive decrease in symptoms. It will for some and it won't for others, but it's also, you've got to consider the way that you get there. If it's been a ketogenic diet where you cut out all the foods you love, maybe you're not socializing at all, maybe literally all you're doing is focusing on your diet 24/7, it's going to be really difficult to sustain that lifestyle going forward. And we also know it can have knock-on effects with fertility. So there's no one diet, I should say, for PCOS, but we know that an anti-inflammatory diet that is rich in diverse plants is really key. So I think that's kind of a common myth that comes up quite a lot of the time. And you probably hear that as well.
Absolutely.
If I just also say one point about supplements comes up a lot, that, oh, if I can take this supplement, it's going to cure my PCOS. And I think social media can be a fantastic tool for education and for community, but it can also lead you down these rabbit holes where you feel like, I'll just try that one more thing, or that's just going to be the one thing that sorts me out. And there are some really interesting supplements, and some that are kind of getting a lot of attention right now, like inositol. And some people get some really great results with some of these supplements, and things like spearmint tea, which I see as really doing no harm. There's some studies by Grant in looking at Turkish women, which found that drinking a couple of cups of spearmint tea a day was shown to reduce excess androgen levels and help with facial hair growth. And this is a traditional cultural practice in Turkey. And of course, if you enjoy spearmint tea, that's great. But I think that a lot of supplements are incredibly expensive. And I've had people before say to me, look, I can't afford fruit and veg. I'm spending all this money on supplements. Sometimes they're on 16, 20 different supplements. They don't even know the names of them sometimes. Sometimes they have interactions. So it's important to say most of the nutrients you can get from your diet, and it should be a food first approach. There are some key supplements you might want to layer on top, but there isn't a magic bullet for PCOS. And anyone who preaches that, they're usually trying to sell something. So I'd say just think about that whole picture. And most of the tools that are going to have the biggest impact for us are actually free of charge. They are something that we can access. And it's difficult. We do live in areas where, there's social determinants of health, access to healthy foods. All of this has to be considered as well. But I do think that the supplement industry has a lot to answer for. It's quite unregulated. And so just be judicious when you're making these kind of purchasing decisions.
Yeah, these are all excellent points. So for, our listeners who want to work with you, how can they do that?
So I do work with clients in the UK, in the USA, Canada, all over the world. I work via telehealth, and I focus on nutrition and lifestyle medicine. So I look at stress management, movement, nutrition, sleep, avoidance of risky substances, and then relationships as well. So all those 6 pillars which are defined by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. I integrate that into all of the sessions I run. I do one-to-one sessions, which are particularly helpful for anyone who's got those fertility-related goals. But then I also run a group program for women with PCOS, which is an incredible community. I usually take on about 10 women at a time. It's a 6-week program. We even have yoga for PCOS. We cover all these different aspects. And I think it's really incredible to see other women learning with you and being on that journey together. So I absolutely love what I do. As you can see, I really enjoy it. But I also, there are other areas of hormonal health and fertility as well that I'm really passionate about. As I mentioned, I have endometriosis myself, and I've had fertility issues, so and fertility treatment. So I know what it's like to walk in those steps, and just sending a lot of kind of love to anyone who's going through that right now. And it can be a lot of pressure to optimize a perfect nutrition lifestyle, but I often take away that pressure from my clients and let them know that it's that progress, not perfection, and just starting to treat ourselves with that kindness that we would show our best friend or anyone else.
Right.
That's what we need as women. We definitely need more of that.
Yeah. And where can people find you and your book?
So I am online on Instagram at Rohini Bajekal. I also have a free Substack with so many different recipes and articles, and it's totally free of charge. Lots of blogs, lots of different things that I cover around things like whether I cover hot topics like bloating or indigestion, or other things like that. And of course, my book, Living PCOS Free, and lots of free resources. If you don't want to buy the book or you don't want to purchase a package from me, please just message me and I'll send you some more free resources, because everyone's in different situations. So yeah, that's the way. I'm based in London, but I do a lot of virtual work.
Excellent. Rohini, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I just want to add that with PCOS, if you found this conversation helpful, please do share it with someone, because I can guarantee perhaps you listen to it and you don't have PCOS yourself, but you will have someone in your life who has PCOS. It might be your sister, your friend, your colleague, your employee, your neighbor, your friend in your running club. So it's something that impacts and touches every single one of our lives. And all of us have to play a role in empowering ourselves with that information so we can support and show up for the people in our lives who've got PCOS. I, for one, do not stop talking about it. And my friends, my family, my partner, my husband gives me these rosemary or head massages to help with my PCOS, hair loss. Like, he's like fully on board with all of my PCOS and everything. And I think that's the way it should be. It's like, you've got to bring people with you and just destigmatize it. I definitely am someone who has carried a lot of shame for a lot of these things and felt very self-conscious of my skin and all of these other areas about my PCOS. And I think the older I get, the more comfortable I'm getting in myself and just feeling like I want to share that with everyone else around me.
Rohini, thank you so much for such an enlightening discussion about PCOS. I really hope that everyone will take your advice, share this conversation with a friend, and also get your book, because there's so much to learn from it. I think fertility doctors have a lot to learn from your book, and OBGYNs, primary care doctors, medical endocrinologists. So thank you again for all the work you and your mom have done.
Well, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be on your podcast.
Thank you, Rohini.
Thank you so much for listening and making the Egg Whisperer Show a part of your weekly routine. To find show notes and a full transcript for this episode, visit dramy.org and look under the blog tab. While you're there, you can find a link for the Egg Whisperer newsletter, which keeps you in the know about fertility news. You can also find Dr. Amy and the Egg Whisperer Show on YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook. If you'd like to learn even more, Dr. Amy offers classes at the Egg Whisperer School, eggwhispererschool.com, or you can request a consultation on dramy.org. Thank you so much for tuning in and for sharing the Egg Whisperer Show with others. Keep sparkling and have a great day.